Israel have just barred two Labour MPs from entering the country. Not the first time they've done this. They did this not that long ago, actually. In this case, they barred Simon Opher and Peter Prinsley, who were there on a parliamentary delegation to see medical and humanitarian work being carried out by organisations such as the brilliant Medical Aid for Palestinians, who do phenomenal work in impossible circumstances. I've just come back from the West Bank myself. I was allowed in, but they revoked my ETA. So I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Simon Opher, and this is really important. He is a medical doctor himself. He knows his stuff when it comes to medical affairs. Hi, Simon. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I just got back yesterday afternoon, so here I am. I'm very irritated, actually, because there's a lot, 2 days of my life which I'll never get back. But anyway, there we are.
I get that. Yeah, I mean, I should say, because I went on a sightseeing visa with a Palestinian Christian organisation. But let's just talk about, you went via Jordan. I know that because I went through that check, the border crossing. What happened?
Well, basically, we went to we got to passport control, and then they asked us where we were staying, and we told them, and then they just asked us various bits about the what we were going to do there, and clearly as a parliamentarian, I wasn't going to lie and just say I was a tourist. So I said I was an MP. And then quite quickly it got elevated to the Ministry of the Interior. We had the consulate, we had the Foreign Office. It all very quickly went that far. And we were basically just sitting there waiting for about 3 hours. And in the end, we were sort of basically deported. We were walked back to the bus to go back to Jordan. And then when we were on the bus, we were given our passports, and then that was it, really. And we were issued with a document a bit like this. It basically said, the above-mentioned individual will be removed from Israel. So that's basically what happened. They didn't particularly say any reason, and our reason for visiting was about just humanitarian healthcare stuff in the West Bank. That was a specific reason for going. And we had a visit arranged to various hospitals in the West Bank area just to see how they were getting on, see if we could help, really. So that was all it was about. Two over 60s doctors were hardly a threat, really, to Israeli security. But it was a real shame we were refused. And I think there wasn't any specific reason. It was just that they don't like any observation. It just makes you feel, what are they trying to hide, really? So that was my main reflection on it. Why don't they want us to go and look round? And I think the truth is healthcare for Palestinians in the West Bank is really pretty poor, and the healthcare workers are being, they're not being paid properly financially. The Palestinian Authority have had most of their money taken away by the government, so they can't pay their staff. So one of the people I've been speaking to described it as a financial war by the finance minister, etc., to sort of take away any sort of finance from any sort of public service in the West Bank. So I can say that now because they haven't allowed me in to have a look. So that's what everyone's saying. So it's really very short-sighted of them. The other doctor is an ENT doctor, and he's actually Jewish and quite senior in the sort of Jewish, the British Jewish area. And he's not anti-Israel, and nor am I, to be honest. I want to get decent health care for everyone, and and I think that most of the Israeli people are finding the whole situation with Gaza and the West Bank extremely uncomfortable. So I'm with the majority of Israeli people as well. About 60 to 70% don't want the war to continue, and they, and how they're behaving in the West Bank is not popular either, as far as I can tell.
On that, I mean, I think it's important just to always have clarity on these issues.
Yeah.
It's just in terms of what the polling says. I spend a lot of time interviewing courageous Israeli activists and so on this channel, including refuseniks, for example, and they're courageous because they're isolated. You're right in the abstract that Israelis want the hostages back, which obviously is completely reasonable.
Yeah.
I think obviously Palestinian hostages, that's what I would regard them as, hostages who are being tortured and raped and killed in Israeli detention, need to be released as well. But if you look at the polling, about 80% of Jewish Israelis, because the 20% of Palestinians want to remove the entire Palestinian population of Gaza,
Right.
70% oppose all humanitarian aid to Gaza.
Mm.
Um, and around half think it's acceptable based on a biblical story to exterminate the entire population of conquered cities. I know. I just think it's important to say this because it's about what happens, and it's not about waiting for something to happen within Israel to stop this, but it's about external pressure. I just want to ask you about that because the Foreign Office says it's totally unacceptable and deeply concerning that yet again 2 British MPs have been denied entry into the occupied Palestinian territories by Israel. But it is acceptable because what's the government going to do about it?
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? What I picked up from, because I actually spoke to Hamish Faulkner from while we were waiting to see if he
He's the
could.
Middle East editor. Minister. People might not know who he is. Middle East minister.
Yeah, so he's a Middle East minister in the Foreign Office, and he, as far as I could tell, he put as much pressure as he could. But I got the strong feeling that actually, particularly since Britain has threatened to recognise the Palestinian state, that's really not gone down well in Israel. And I'm no apologist for that. I think it's exactly the right thing to do. And I think relationship between the two, what essentially are, strictly speaking, allies, is extremely poor. And I don't think they've got much leverage at all over the Israeli government. I don't think they ever have, really. And the only real leverage they've got is around recognizing Palestine. And so I think that's. But so I do feel.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
Britain continues to provide crucial components for F-35 jets.
Yeah.
Britain continues to share intelligence with the Israeli intelligence services. Britain continues to train Israeli soldiers on British soil. Britain refuses to prosecute British nationals who are serving in the IDF. And Britain has £6 billion a year worth of trade with Israel. Of course there's leverage. I'm just curious, what do you mean there's no leverage?
Yeah, well, that's not my sort of special area, and I don't. I've been pretty critical of the government. To be fair, I've really tried and take them to task, and I think that I think they should absolutely cut off any even vestiges of arms dealing with Israel. I mean, it's obviously totally barbaric what's happening in Gaza, and we should stop doing that. And actually, politically, we should be very clear that we stop doing it. And I'm surprised they haven't really, but I think.
But I suppose that's my concern. I mean, surely because I was just a bit, I'm not saying it because I'm glad you're speaking out about this, and I know for example, you have been behind a campaign to get injured Palestinian children treated here, and that. So I mean this completely respectfully. It's just when as you said, Israel is an ally, which I think is shameful because it's committing genocide.
Yeah.
But if Labour MPs aren't clear about what the pressure points are, then how can pressure be brought on the government to stop supplying components to F-35 jets? I mean, that alone, because they refuse to stop. Surely that's something Labour MPs such as yourself should be screaming from the hills about, because that's literally, that's currently right now. F-35 jets are bombing what is already apocalyptic ruin in Gaza.
Yeah, no. Well, some of us are, to be honest, though. And I've been to see Hamish talking about three things actually: about immediate cut off any type of arms trade with Israel, and I also was asking for a recognition of the Palestinian state. And the third thing that I campaign on particularly is the way that the IDF have been treating healthcare staff. So they are actually deliberately murdering doctors. They shot a doctor in the head the other day, a GP, just like myself, but unfortunately in Gaza. And they've something like 1,500 to 2,000 healthcare workers have been killed. And in fact, what they're doing is the healthcare workers I've spoken to don't go out of the hospital in scrubs because they immediately get arrested. So that is appalling. And that, I think, has wider implications as well, because apparently they became targets in Syria when that was on. And it's clearly a bit of modern warfare that healthcare staff who are just trying to look after the injured of the absolutely stupid and barbaric war are being actually individually targeted. So that's been my main three thrusts with Hamish. I know exactly what you're saying, Owen, and I really do feel that. And to be honest, we've all got a bit bored on the left of the party, trooping into the Commons, saying everything that you've said, and getting a similar response to the government. And I think it would be within their power just to say, right, that's it. Let's stop doing all these things and get on the right side of history, really.
I mean, what did Hamish Faulkner say when you, for example, said stop providing components for F-35 jets, which are raining death and destruction on the people of Gaza?
Yeah. So what he said that there's virtually no other arms trade. The F-35. He said that many other countries in the world have it, and they have to provide spares for the international market. And then, because of that, they have no control over whether they go to Israel or not. Now, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but that is what his message was. Owen.
No, for example, I mean, if that was going to Russian jets, they would just stop it. They wouldn't. I mean, that would be the end of that. I mean, there's no question at all that the British government would ever be in a situation where they allowed crucial components for Russian fighter jets to bomb Ukraine, is there?
No, no. Look, I hear what you're saying, and I think my answer though is that some of us within the Labour Party have been really vociferous on this, as you probably know.
No. I know it's important. I'm just trying to, because it's it's a matter of life and death on a mass scale, so it's important.
Yeah,
that,
but I think my cap really is also in terms of actually just being on the right side of history, and also just mere politics. Really, it looks crap what we're doing, and we need to stop doing any sort of arms dealing with Israel, in my opinion, and until they actually stop doing what they're doing, and then we can then rebuild a relationship. But I agree. I think it's sort of silly not to, really, because I think it puts us on their side, and I don't think we want to be on that side in this war.
On that, when I was in Palestine, it was put to me very forcefully by Palestinians over and over again that recognising the state of Palestine was a completely symbolic measure, which they thought was for domestic consumption back in Britain. I mean, their point was what Palestinian state is going to be left for them to be recognised, and I mean, just that point about just ending trade. I mean, just impose sweeping sanctions in the way we did with apartheid South Africa.
Yeah, no, I'd actually support that as well. I think we have to, put as many. I think what's going to happen actually in the future is that there's going to be an apartheid in Israel, whereby Israel basically take over the whole space, and Palestinians are deprived of freedom and autonomy. Really,
there already is apartheid. I mean that was years ago. I mean, from Israeli human rights organization Bethlehem to Amnesty International. I mean, I stared apartheid in the face. I was in Hebron, and they're barred from using the roads. They're welded inside their own homes and school and businesses.
Yeah, and I think that's more likely. I think that the recognition thing is. I mean, so what I really, I'm a GP, I'm no expert in foreign policy, etc. But what I think the government was looking for is some sort of leverage on the Israelis, and they haven't got any. Basically, they can say anything they want, but they have got the trade side. But I
went through the leverage. So Britain continues to fly RAF surveillance flights over Gaza. Britain shares intelligence sharing with Gaza. Britain trains Israeli soldiers on British soil, and we have an unknown number of British nationals serving in the Israeli Defence Force, which is committing every war crime and crime against humanity under the sun. And we trade £6 billion a year. I mean, that's a huge amount of leverage.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, they feel that. Well, anyway, I'm just reporting what Hamish said. He said that.
Say that back to him. Say that back to him, please.
Well, please. I will do. That's what I said. As I say, it's not my special focus here is actually on healthcare, because that's the bit that I know something about. So I'm trying to. I mean, it's such a vast and awful thing that I feel like if we can just, I'm concentrating on that bit to try and improve.
No, I know, but because I recognise that's your speciality. It's just you're a Labour MP, and you have leverage over the Labour government. As a Labour MP. I mean, just the other thing is, well, collectively you do, of course. Look, I mean, again, it's just last week the British government, in a letter signed by David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, said that the government had not concluded Israel was carrying out genocide.
Right. Sorry, could you say that again, Owen? Sorry, I missed that.
So the British government set out their official position last week that they have not concluded Israel is carrying out genocide in Gaza.
Right.
That comes 86% of the International Association of Genocide Scholars passed the motion saying genocide was taking place. It's the consensus of genocide scholars, and in the way it's the consensus of climate scientists that there's a climate emergency. And the UN report has just come out, independent report saying genocide is taking place. And Amnesty International, B'Tselem, again, the Israeli human rights organization. Firstly, just to make sure you think it's genocide.
Yeah.
So do you think it's genocide, just to make sure that we
no, I think you can't describe it in any other way. And again, we have to let experts, and I would say that the UN is not a biased organization. If they say it's genocide, it's genocide. And what we're seeing on TV, what I'm hearing from people, I don't think we can describe it in any other way.
So why is the British government, in defiance of the consensus of genocide scholars, in defiance? But do you know? I mean, I suppose this comes about I am interested because you said it's about being the right side of history. I agree with you.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was put by a Conservative MP, no less, about legal liability, because the Genocide Convention of 1948 prohibits 5 crimes. One of them is complicity in genocide. The Genocide Convention also imposes legal obligations on governments to prevent genocide from taking place. There's also the International Arms Trade Treaty, which was put into British law in 2014, about not providing arms, including components for fighter jets, which could be used in the commission of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. I'd put it to you that they're legally at risk, that your ministers, the British government.
Yeah, well, you might well be right. And I think that was presumably Kit Malthouse, wasn't it, the Conservative?
It was Kit Malthouse, yeah.
Who's a fantastic spokesman, I think, and also very erudite. Well, he does very good pointed questions. I mean, look, I'm with you on this, Owen, to be honest. I think that we need to shift our position. And one of the things I'm hoping to do about getting refused entry is actually use it to try and, just make us try and shift our position so that we're much closer to where you are on this. And I think I think we've been slightly behind the curve, I have to say, on a number of issues. Compared to the Conservative Party, we're miles away from their position now. And that's so that has changed, but we're not as far as we should be, I think.
Well, I mean, the bar's on the floor, as they say. But I mean, if you're still arming a genocide, the British government, if the British government's still arming a genocide, it's that's complicity. The Spanish government has spoken out and said this is a genocide, and they have taken far more forceful action. Ireland has also obviously said it's a genocide. Yeah. So
I wonder what France are going to do. Have you heard anything about France, Owen?
Well, I mean, again, France are definitely behind the curve, and definitely, you're right, completely complicit. They were ahead of the British government, followed the lead of France in terms of an independent Palestinian state.
Yeah,
I certainly wouldn't argue declaring support for a Palestinian state is the wrong thing to do. But as again was put to me by Palestinians, they said to me that's the sort of thing that should have been done in the 1990s.
Well, that's true.
Not when Palestine's just been wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah. Because we've actually got a local issue in Stroud around that, because Dale Vince, who owns Ecotricity, a big employer in the town and a left-wing environmentalist, has put up a massive Palestinian flag on his building, and he's not allowed to put a flag up because it's not a recognised country. So it's called advertising if you do that. If it is a recognised country, so I'm just hoping they do recognise it, because otherwise it will sort out. But that was just a little local flavour.
Okay. Well, there we go. Let's hope for that. Well, look, I'm glad you are speaking out, and you got barred. You got barred by Israel because I think what you would have done is just say what you saw, and if you go to Palestine, if you go to the West Bank, and say what you see, that is damning enough. It was interesting actually. Before I got in, the people who made the decision, there was one guy in the passport booth staring at me. He kept staring at me, and when they went off to make their decision, he came up to me and said, "You make videos, don't you?" And I was like, "Well, I'm FUCKED now. I'm not getting in." But he said, "You can go to Israel to learn." And I just thought to myself, what planet is he living on? Whoever goes to the West Bank and comes out going, do you know what? I was really critical of Israel, but now I've seen apartheid with my own eyes.
Yeah. Well, it's indicative, isn't it, Owen, that they didn't let us in. I mean, a Jewish doctor who's not, of the same opinion as me and you, but he wasn't then either. And that means they don't want us to see stuff. Actually, that's the only conclusion I get from it, really, and that's not
Yeah.
a good reflection on what's going on at all. And
No,
I shall. Mm,
despite the fact, I would say that even, I mean, I think it's humiliating. The British government continues to say we're friends and allies of a state committing terrible crimes, continues to arm them. And then that state humiliates the British
yeah,
government with no actual comeback, though, I'm afraid to say, apart from issuing a statement saying it's unacceptable. But anyway, look,
yeah,
I'm
but
glad I'm glad you're speaking out. It's really important you're speaking out
yeah.
and you're using a platform. I hope Labour rebels are more forceful and coordinated and more strategic in terms of focusing on what Britain can be done. Please don't let them say they don't have leverage. They do have leverage. Anyway,
Okay. Yeah,
but
no, good point, Owen. I totally accept that. And there are a number of us, as you well know, that are pretty strident about that. So I've been talking to Clive this morning about Clive Lewis. And, it's genocide, and he's saying it's genocide, and it's quite clear that that's what it is. And, we all see it on telly. You can't deny what's actually going on. And
the
that's what.
British government, the British government does. I'm afraid to say their official position is genocide denial.
Well,
But
yeah. Let's
hopefully
see.
we can get.
I'll see if I can influence them and do that. But you know what it's like as a backbencher, Owen. But we'll see what we can do anyway.
Well, all power to you if you can do that. Please like and subscribe, everyone. Leave your comments, but please, above all else, share the video so everyone can hear that there is, and again, an MP who is doing important work, not least on injured and sick Palestinian children who he's been pushing to get treatment here. So, Simon, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.